Welcome to Cult Macabre, a phantasmagoric guide to pop culture's dark side. I'm Richie.
And I'm Lee.
Today we are kicking off with the 40th anniversary of A Nightmare on Elm Street, released in 1984. Spoilers abound, obviously, because this movie has been out for 40 fucking years, and if you haven't seen the movie yet...
That's on you, buddy.
That's right. So from the boiler room to the spoiler room we go. When this movie opens, by God, does it set a tone. We actually had the opportunity to see this on the big screen recently for its 40th anniversary, and that made a huge difference because I've only ever seen this movie on VHS or DVD or Blu-ray.
Same thing with me. I loved that experience of getting the surround sound and the theater visuals and everything like that. That was fantastic. I very much enjoyed that.
The only thing that I will say about the movie experience as a whole was the fact that they were just like, hey guys, we're going to give you the mono track, because I did notice that they gave us a very crappy audio track to go along with the visuals. Like, they really opted to give us the 1984 experience as a whole.
It was the true experience.
Yeah, it was definitely the time travel experience there. So anyway, the boiler room sequence opens where Freddy Krueger is still alive and he's building his signature bladed glove, which is, in my opinion, the most iconic horror weapon in history.
For sure.
It's just so grimy, and he's just like breathing all like... Do
you notice how dirty and just absolutely filthy his hands were? Just covered in like soot and ash and filth.
There's water dripping from everything. Everything is rusted. He could have taken a shower with the amount of water that was dripping. Filthy motherfucker.
Every opportunity, and he did not take it.
No, he should have didn't. So the movie kicks off with the big dream sequence where we get set up with the character of Tina, which this is the thing I feel like they did again with Scream, like Wes Craven, whenever Scream came out in 1996. We were set up to believe that Tina Gray was going to be the final girl.
Yeah, they do everything to give you that impression, opening up with her, obviously. And then the fact that she doesn't die within the first 5 minutes, you know she's not going to be quite like a one scene and done character.
Oh, no, they gave her like 20.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe 20 minutes.
Hey, that's more screen time than Freddy got, to
Dude.
be fair.
Okay, so let our listeners out there know, how much time did Freddy actually get on screen for this one?
So Freddy collectively got 7 minutes, I believe, of on-screen time total across the entire film.
And the running time for this movie is 91 minutes. So you do the math on that. He probably lasted on screen about as long as the average dream does.
To be fair, the minutes that he was on screen were dramatic. You know, you needed them, and you needed him to not be on screen to be more afraid of him.
Yeah, because I think that's something that happens in horror movies a lot, where as a franchise rolls further, you get more screen time from your villain, and then it kind of kills the mystique. As this series rolls on, this helps and does not help. Not to get too far into the franchise, because I'm sure we'll visit these movies further along down the road as we do this show. But by the time part 5 comes around, it's like, dude, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like,
they
that's
really settle into it.
Yeah, it's pretty... That one's not that great, but anyway, we're in the first one, so let's continue forth with the chlorophyll, as it were. So this is actually Johnny Depp's first movie also. Like, there's a lot of really great actors in this. I do want to say that, like, right off the bat. Like, you got Ronnie Blakely, John Saxon, and Johnny Depp, which Johnny Depp, as we know, would go on to be the super mega star that he is today. John Saxon, however, was already a very established big name in Hollywood when this came about. So getting him on board with this was a big deal.
He did a great job. Like, I love every single scene he's in. He really falls into the officer role quite a bit. And if I'm remembering correctly, didn't he play a cop in another movie? The other big one he was in as well?
Well, he did a lot of crime movies, but he was in like a lot of Italian films from like the 1960s and shit. But he was in Black Christmas. So yeah, that was the other big deal, that he was an officer in that, which is funny because in the 80s, like the 70s and the 80s, that's kind of what he did, was he played like law enforcement officers and shit like that.
And he does a great job doing the officer bit and also the caring father bit. Like, I think his relationship with Nancy is extremely believable and realistic in this particular situation.
Right. But where Tina is concerned, we don't get that impression because the movie kicks off with her nightmare, which I think is probably one of the better tone setters in any kind of horror movie because it's wet, it's dark, it's cold, there's a fucking goat. But what's creepy is like seeing this in the theater, we got a lot of the nuances that you don't really get unless you have the volume cranked up really high because you can hear Freddy whispering her name. Eventually, like he pops up, like she gets to this one spot in the boiler room and then he pops up, which is like the big jump scare, the very first jump scare. And then she comes to, and this is where the parents like come into play, where her mom just busts in the room and basically telling her like, oh, you should cut your fingernails. You know, you gotta cut your nails, or you gotta stop that kind of dreaming. I'm like, what?
My favorite is the boyfriend just pops in. He's like, babe, when you come into bed or something like that. And she just goes, not now or some shit.
She kind of goes, but he's kind of gross. Look at like, why are all
he looks a little grody. Yeah.
All the fucking male leads in most of these movies that like are at the parents' age, they're fucking disgusting. Like that dude is. Did he have like the wife beater fucking thing going on?
He had something like that going. To be fair, they did jump out of bed for that. So.
I know, but still, I'm just like, they really went out of their way to
They grunched him up a little bit.
Yeah, because he's being like gross about it. Like knows he's going into the daughter's room. He's like, I come back to bed, and I'd be grossed out too.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tina's just like, ugh, fuck. Like she's probably sitting there like, God, I was better off with this mangled fucker in my dreams.
Oh no. Well, we learned that to not be true.
Yeah. Well, cutting to the next morning, they pan from the Jump Rope Girls, which has become very synonymous with the entire franchise with the 1-2 Freddy's coming for you. The red Cadillac pulls up with not all four of them because I don't think Rod shows up. I think Rod just runs up on them. But our main protagonists jump out and they're walking to class and Tina's discussing her dream with Nancy. Enter Rod Lane.
We love Rod. So one thing I love about his character in particular is his relationship with Tina. They go back and forth at each other quite a bit, and I find that to be humorous. You don't always see relationships portrayed in that particular way, and it also feels very, again, like a real relationship, a genuine back and forth between a boyfriend and girlfriend. That playful disparaging.
Yeah, because he just rolls up. I woke up with a heart on this morning that had your name on it. There's 4 letters in my name, Rod. How could there be enough room on it for your name? Hey, up yours with a twirling lawnmower. Like, who the fuck wrote that line, by the way?
Rod says the sweetest things.
Yeah. But they cut to the scene where Nancy and Tina are going to have their sleepover because Tina's freaked out over the nightmare, and Johnny Depp's character, which is Nancy's boyfriend, Glenn, is there. And they make mention, they're like, oh yeah, well, I didn't think you were going to be able to spend the night tonight. And it's like, well, not exactly. We find out that Glenn has lied to his mom, which I have to bring this up. He's lied to his mom about where he's going to be, to the point that he's gotten a special effects tape from Rod to play on the phone, and he plays it on the phone. And it's a bunch of this stupid ass shit where he was definitely, you could tell he was definitely planning on being done with this phone call by the time the first one went around, because it was just like, oh yeah, my mom, he's like, it's okay, mom thinks I'm at this place and this is near the airport and shit. And he puts the airplane sound effects on there.
On the boombox.
Yeah, oh my God. And it's like one of those old school, well, I mean, I say old school, it was up the time. It's one of those fucking huge 1980s put it on your shoulder boombox things.
Hearing the noise of the cassette tape just right back in there, that brought back nostalgia for me, actually.
Yeah, same. And it's funny, like he's like, oh yeah, it's just, loud as usual, mom, and he's playing, and then it just cuts to the next one. It's like drag racing sounds, and you can tell he was definitely planning to have been done with this by now. And it's funny to just see his face and then hear him have to like just kind of pull stuff out of his ass, like, oh, it's just some kids drag racing down the street, mom.
Well, just the neighbors having a fight.
Yeah, but just the neighbors having a fight was the gunshots, and there was like a bunch of like machine guns going off and like a bunch of basically World War II sounds, I would like to think, because like Nancy and them are starting to fuck with them, and they're just pushing like different buttons, and it's skipping, several seconds into this cassette tape, and
It's got the same vibes as someone calling in, being 3 hours late for work, and listening to a YouTube video of traffic noises in the background.
Have you done this before?
And then suddenly an ad pops in out of nowhere, and you're like, shit.
Have you done this before?
No. For legal purposes, I cannot answer that question.
He eventually hangs up the phone with her, and then we get to some more, I guess, character development for Rod, because all we've gotten so far from Rod is up yours with a twirling lawnmower. So what does Rod do? He shows up unannounced, and he's been scraping on shit outside with like a gardening tool.
Yes, he thinks he has a sense of humor.
I think the irony is that it's funny that he thinks he's funny.
Oh, yeah. And he's so dramatic about it, too. I love how when they get creeped out by the noise and they start making their way outside to, investigate, you have very thin, kind of small, all things considered, Johnny Depp standing, and they're both of these girls are cowering behind him. And all I can think of is that man is nothing but a small meat shield between you and whatever might be waiting for you outside.
Small meat shield?
A medium-sized dog might be able to take that man down.
For real? You just did that dude so dirty.
Sorry. Yeah, I will point out that he is the jock of the movie too, which just leads to a little bit more to that.
I have to say something, and it's funny that you brought that up, because the entire time that I ever watched this movie as a child and on into my adulthood, like, it slowly became apparent that that's what he was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. That is not the impression I got. He just seemed like boy next door, which is exactly what Nancy Thompson's character is, a girl next door.
Definitely.
Rod comes off like the jock more than anything.
Yeah, he's got that, like, the bad boy jock.
Yeah, but yeah, sure. He definitely is like the greaser that also plays football.
He even makes a football comment because he tackles Johnny Depp outside.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's wild to think, like, because again, at first, the impression I got was that Rod was just an asshole bully that picked on Glenn. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that they're buddies, and that's just how they roasted each other back in the day, I guess.
And then he pulls out that, was it switchblade? Yep. Pocket knife, and just pops it right in his face for saying something disparaging. And Nancy just reaches over and is like, enough of that, and just puts it away real quick.
Yeah. So pretty much, like, Rod has come over to the house to make up for the fight that Tina and him had. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me the fight they had was because he made a dick joke and she made a dick joke about his name?
What a kerfuffle.
Right back. That's not... I guess that's a fight in 1984.
And she even goes so far as to say, don't leave me alone with this guy. He's a maniac, right before he drags her off to mom's bedroom.
Right. And it's weird because, like, you can tell she's totally joking. Like, she's being facetious with, like, Nancy and Glenn. But if you look at it from their point of view, if they wouldn't have ever believed that what happens to her actually happened, it'd be like, no, she was afraid of him. She called him a maniac and was like, don't leave me alone with him, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay. So we cut to that night. There's a very humorous sequence happening where they are fucking upstairs. Let's just cut to the chase on that. Glenn is on the couch because he tried to make a move on Nancy, and she was like, oh, not now, not here. We're here for them now. And he's laying there at 2 a.m. listening to them just pork, and he just rolls over. Morality sucks.
Morality sucks. Yeah, and let's just say that we don't know, I don't think, what time exactly the phone call and bit happened. Obviously earlier in the evening because he was able to converse with his parents. How long were they going at it for them to still be doing it at 2 a.m?
I don't know. I've never actually thought about that.
I miss that teenager energy, man.
I miss the teenager energy just to stay up that late.
Oh God, no! I get tired at 10:30 at this point. My knees hurt. I'm achy. I want to go to sleep. We need to do what we need to get done a couple hours beforehand, and then we're good.
Arthritis sucks. Don't get old, kids.
At that point, it cuts to a scene where we've got Tina and Rod in bed post-coitus.
Okay, Sheldon.
I absolutely love this bit because it cracks me up where he asks if they're cool now that she's, gotten boned. Okay. She got the D. Look, is she okay?
If this was a Diablo Cody movie, that would have 100% been the line that was written. If this was Juno, that would have been the line. Are you cool now that you've been boned?
Her response to that is even better, in my opinion. Jungle Man fixed Jane.
Right? Like, they totally made them look like Tweedledee and Tweedledumbass.
Which I'm okay with because that's exactly the kind of shit that I would jokingly say. So I get it.
It's funny because like Tina is written to be super blonde, but she's got some gumption about her. And then Rod is caveman with leather.
I think they go on to talk about how, oh, you feel better now. I believe he says something about, oh, maybe the nightmares will stop for me too, or something along those lines.
Yeah, he said no more nightmares for us, for either of us.
Yep. And then she says something and he responds with, guys can have nightmares too, you know.
Yeah, because she's like, when did you have a nightmare?
And he just rolls over and pulls the blanket up over his shoulder like he's just done.
I know, that's what made me laugh too. Like they literally just finished having makeup sex, and then she's like, when did you have a nightmare too? And like she's genuinely, curious. And he's getting all like bro man offended, like, guys, you have nightmares too. No, you ain't got a corner of the market or something.
That's exactly it. Yep. The toxic masculinity. And then the following scene right after that, I believe, is we're switching over to Nancy in the guest bedroom, I'm assuming, or Tina's room. Yes, it is Tina's room because of the crucifix. Right before she nearly gets a concussion from Jesus, she's seeing the light.
Bro, no, Jesus just did a flying headbutt off the top rope.
Frog splash on her fucking noggin.
A nog splash.
A nog splash. Well, through a really awesome use of spandex for the special effect, we see this very awesome figure start protruding from the wall, claws and face, and it's Freddy looming over her. And it really, because it's quiet, I feel like during that scene, it really gives you that really foreboding someone's watching you sense that Nancy definitely picks up on as well.
Right, and the best part is it's also very physically representative of something trying to bust its way into your reality in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know how the fuck that crucifix was mounted, because that is a bedroom where it's in the top floor of the house and the ceiling is clearly slanting forward.
She even reaches up and I think like taps on the wall.
She knocks on the wall and shit. So we get to the actual nightmare. Tina is she's still sleeping, but our boy Freddy's just throwing rocks at the window.
It's a little pink, pink, pink.
Yeah, and if it were me, I'm just saying, if it were me, I would have written this to where she goes to the window, sees the rocks being thrown in, it's putting a big fucking chip in the window, but she looks down, and Freddy's just standing there with a giant boombox held over his head with In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel just blasting at her.
That's a love story I would have sat for.
It would be really funny to see Krueger in a romantic comedy.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious. A black romantic comedy. Absolutely.
What would you call it?
Like the name of the movie?
Mm-hmm. Because I have a name.
What's yours?
Roses are Fred. I'm sorry. Go on.
So she goes from seeing these pebbles being shot in her window. Even though she is way up in that bedroom, she tries to speak to this person, or whatever might be out there that she does or does not see. Makes her way downstairs, completely barefoot.
I don't think any character in this movie believes in shoes.
No. There is, I remember one scene literally noting that Nancy was wearing slippers in that particular scene, and that's about it. But she makes her way outside. And you can hear all of Freddy whispering to her the entire time. It leads to a very eerie effect. Again, that foreboding feeling kind of creeps up on you. But she very, very confidently marches across her backyard to go check out the alleyway.
Not only did she have a lot of confidence in herself, she had a lot of confidence in her feet, not picking up any kind of glass or, syringe needles or literally anything like that. By the way, this entire setting for any of the Nightmare on Elm Street films is set in the fictional town of Springwood, Ohio.
Which is where I'm from.
This is clearly California.
The palm trees kind of give that away a little bit.
Yeah.
But they tried.
Yeah, they definitely tried. But, seriously, she's walking around barefoot, and literally my first thought was, oh, fuck, that hurts my feet.
Yeah, that was painful just to watch, just that alone.
And we get the silhouette, finally. We get the silhouette of Freddy Krueger, and it's... Is it just me, or did the musical sting they threw in there sound like a Western? Like that fucking glockenspiel is like slapping and he stands there, the fucking hat. If the impression that it gave, she turns around and instead of him being like, it's like doing his fucking laugh, she turns around and he just, time to meet your maker, partner. Like some fucking dumb shit.
That sounds like it was filmed in Ohio at that point.
No, right on.
But I will say that Freddy, hands down, has the most recognizable silhouette of probably any like major slasher character I can think of.
Yep. And Robert Englund absolutely picked up on that when they were shooting this. Because if you've ever seen, anybody out there, the Never Sleep Again documentary, which is essentially a 4.5-hour documentary on the entire Elm Street franchise, Robert Englund knew right then and there they had something. So he was always like making a really conscious decision in Freddy's like stances or his looks or his side eye or even to the silhouette.
Even more than that silhouette leads to Freddy making his way down the alleyway, which, let's just say I'm a big fan of Dorito chest and orangutan arms. It makes me giggle every time I see it. For the time it was created, it was a very well done effect. It was slightly comical, but the whole franchise kind of leans into the comedy bit just a little bit. And you just see his arms stretch all the way out to both sides of this alleyway so that he can drag his claws down and make that terrible screeching sound that makes me cringe every time. The mechanical chest piece that he had to wear was just very triangular, and they used puppeteering strings to extend the arms out, so people on both sides were actually controlling those at that point.
They had it on fishing rod.
Fishing rod, even better.
But I will say, to defend the then corny-looking practical effects, this is a dream. And it would not be out of the ordinary to see some stupid shit like that. You know what I mean?
And that actually helps a lot with a lot of other things in the movie when you start to think about it. The being barefoot and only in your freaking PJs every time you're dreaming, or not wearing pants. That's a very common one in nightmares. So it really flows well with it. It's the suspension of disbelief there. It really helps.
That is kind of like when it just kicks into full gear right there, is when he just starts after. And then it just does not stop. There's some really cool effect shots, and there's some cool camera trickery that's happening in this alleyway where she actually like runs back to her backyard and he pops out from behind the tree. Very Tom and Jerry.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
It's like some old vaudeville. Like, that's another thing about Freddy that blows my mind, is how much vaudeville shit they kind of incorporated into his character.
Like I said, the black humor in this movie is wonderful. They do a great job with it, and they only expand on it as they go along.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, and because he fucks with her, like, right before she goes back inside, he's like, "Hey, Tina, watch this." He sounds like Beavis a little bit. Yeah. Hey, Tina, watch this. He fucking, like, chops his pinky and ring fingers off. Yeah, and there's a really good makeup gag here where when he chases her, like, they fall over into this table that's, like, right next to the stairwell, and she's reaching up to, like, grab at his face, and she pulls the skin of his face off, and it's just, like, this bare, not quite skeleton, but not quite flesh.
Every single time I see that scene, I really appreciate the way that it looks, because it looks wet, it looks gory, it looks realistic. It's very well done, all things considered. That's actually one of my favorite points in the movie.
And it's a good transition too, because like when she does that, I think she's like throws like a sheet that they fell into like over her face or whatever, but it cuts back to them in the bedroom. So now you're getting the situation that's happening. And I think that joke of hitting a motherfucker with another motherfucker originated in this bedroom.
Oh my gosh. So leading up to this, we've got Rod being jolted awake because Tina is thrashing under the sheets just sporadically.
Yeah, there was a Slayer concert happening, right?
Oh my gosh, she was moshing real hard down there.
Yeah.
He's obviously not having a good time, and nobody's having a good time.
Nobody is having a Baja Blast in this house, all right?
Absolutely not. He stands up to help Tina with whatever the hell he thinks is going on. And Tina, I think at this point, she actually goes into the air.
Her top pulls open, and then the razor cuts happen, and she splits open and just starts bleeding out. And I think that's about the point when he turns the lamp on. But as soon as he turns the lamp on, he turns around. She's already sideways midair, and she just flies around, and you just falls over into the corner, and he's fucked up. You know, then we get that iconic scene of her getting dragged up the wall and onto the ceiling. And this is actually part of one of the scenes they had to cut for the theatrical release of this, because there's a very long shot of her falling onto the bed, which is actually at this point just like a literal pool of blood, which it shows her hit the mattress, and a lot of blood actually splashes onto the character of Rod, and then they cut back to her and she falls onto the floor. Well, they had to cut like right as she hit the bed. They had to cut that completely. So you hear that really weird like sound effect of somebody diving into a swimming pool.
That wet splash. Yes, absolutely.
Nancy and Glenn wake up, bust into the room. Rod's gone.
I believe after this, we lead into our police station scene.
Yes, we do, because they cut right over to Lieutenant Donald Thompson of the Dream Police. I'm just going to call it the Dream Police. Yeah, I think, hey, that's a great fucking song, okay? And I'm talking about the Cheap Trick song, Dream Police. So, the Dream Police of Elm Street. That would be a fucking cool spinoff. Pay me for that later on, somebody at Wes Craven's estate. We cut over to Lieutenant Thompson walking up with his assistant or his co-worker. No, her name was Tina Gray. Like, already, her name was Tina Gray. Mother's away with her boyfriend in Vegas. And he's reading stats like an NFL scorecard or something.
I remember they said something about Rod being arrested for drugs. At least I know there was something else thrown in there too.
It's like, oh, he's been arrested for brawling and drugs. He's a musician type, and I'm like, nothing about this man screams musician.
Not unless he's in Grease the musical.
Exactly. He's not there yet, but when they do get to him in the jail cell, there is kind of like a small sad reality with this actor, which thankfully it's turned around since then, and we'll get to it. But the next morning, Nancy is getting up for school, because like she's already had this talk with her mom and her dad, which I should point out, like before we go any further, that it's very apparent that her parents are divorced for reasons. If this is your first time ever seeing this movie, you have no fucking idea why they're divorced. However, we are surmising, at least I am surmising, that this divorce happened because A, she's drunk a lot, and I believe that stems from the verdict of Fred Krueger being let go in the court and the parents of Elm Street finding and burning this motherfucker alive. Which I would
definitely.
which I would like to think correlated in the divorce, because Donald is a police lieutenant, and that's kind of a conflict of interest in that regard. So, yeah, the mom's a drunk and the dad is like a workaholic police officer.
I like that though, because I feel like his job as a police officer gives him a very ingrained sense of justice, and I get the feeling that he does not feel guilty about it whatsoever. Like, it does not bother him.
No. And you can tell she's still like pretty fucked up about it enough to where she's drinking a lot.
Oh yeah, the vodka bottle is definitely a reoccurring character throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, it definitely fucking is, man. So like going the next morning, Nancy's, getting ready for school. And is this the debut of the vodka character?
It is, yes. It definitely is.
All right. Let's hear a little bit more about this vodka character.
So I really love the first scene with the vodka bottle in particular, because I don't know if you know this, the vodka bottle is also a magician.
Oh, no shit.
Pulls a disappearing act, right? Right in that grouping of scenes. You see it very clearly behind her. And I think she's trying to like hide the fact that it's on the counter by standing directly in front of it. And she does this a couple times throughout the movie, as if she's trying to hide her rampant alcoholism. She stands right in front of it, and you see it there for a couple scenes, and then it goes back, and the vodka bottle is just completely gone. I doubt she drank it that fast, but I also would not put it past her.
Now you see it, now you don't, because she's drank it so fucking fast. But no, the bottle is 100% gone by the time they've cut back to it. Also, she goes through a lot of that shit.
Oh my God, yes.
She's got like bottles hidden all over this fucking house.
We do see some scenes where she's literally pulling them from hiding places.
She's just drinking right out of the bottle too.
Glug, glug, glug.
2 shots of vodka.
Falling down the fucking stairs like, hey, baby.
Mommy loves you.
Jesus.
Also, let me just note that in this scene is Nancy about to go back to school literally the day after all this stuff happens to, quote, take her mind off of it, whatnot. Her mom asks her if she even slept that night, and she goes, oh, I'll sleep in study hall. Throws a bag over her shoulder. And let me say, this is the emptiest fucking book bag I have ever seen. I don't know about you, but I carried like 25 pounds worth of shit in that bag at any given time.
It's the saddest JanSport I've ever looked at. So she's definitely walking down the street, right? And there's an eerie feeling because she's looking around and there's nothing but like police presence on every corner, right? And Rod just grabs her.
Out of a bush.
Well, Rod's used to being in bush by this point, so...
He's a big fan.
Yeah. So he pulls her into the bush, and he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm like, you would not have given that impression otherwise, buddy. Like, you're covered in dried blood and holding this person very tightly.
I love his line there. Don't look at me like I'm some kind of fruitcake.
Yeah, I'm warning you.
There's like 3 times we hear the word fruitcake being used.
Is it all Rod saying fruitcake?
I think so.
God damn it. But then Sheriff Saxon, I'm just going to call him fucking Sheriff Saxon of the Dream Police. It's fucking hilarious. He just rolls up.
He comes out of the bush too.
He does. Look.
He hasn't gotten bush in a long time.
John
right?
Saxon is the man. That man could have bush anytime he wants it. Fucking comes out of nowhere, holds the gun. He's like, just move away from his son real nice and easy like your ass depended on it.
And he pulled a psych and just like darted behind Nancy, who then jumps in front of her father's gun to keep him from shooting at her buddy. Also, this bitch runs barefoot down a paved road. Like that asphalt, my feet would not be handling that shit.
He was like mission running. I mean, obviously, like I was just waiting on like the star level from GTA to pop up on the top right corner of our television watching this, because what would you put that? Is that like a 2? Is that a 3?
Suspected murder, probably a 3 or 4 star at least. I would say 3. Let's go with a steady 3.
Go like a nice 3 out of 5 star running sequence from One Rod Lane, which he's just yelling the whole time, I didn't do it, I didn't kill it, Nancy. And I'm like, you would say that, bro. You would be saying that, which he really fucking didn't. But I love how Nancy's like, you used me to her dad. She like, it's giving, you lied to me fucking vibes. And he's like, what the hell were you doing going to school for today anyway? Like, bro, she's living with the wrong parent at this point.
I was about to say, there's your first hint that dad might be a little bit more in tune to what his daughter needs in the moment, because mom was just like, oh, okay, go sleep in school, you're good. Just send her on her merry way. But dad's like, what the fuck were you thinking?
Vodka was doing the thinking there.
Absolutely.
2 shots, in fact. Anyway, she goes to school, and our favorite person in the world, Lynn Shay.
Oh, we love Lynn Shay.
Lynn Shay shows up and she starts explaining what the further is. And what the further is wait, wrong fucking movie. Sorry. Lynn Shay shows up and she's giving this entire lesson at school. It's very obviously like English literature class. Nancy falling the fuck asleep in this bitch.
I've been there.
All of us have. There's this dude.
I love this guy.
Yeah. Okay. So the guy that plays John, who is the kid that starts to give the Hamlet stage whisper scene where Nancy actually falls asleep and she has her dream. That guy reminds me of somebody, like way later on, he shows this movie to his kids and he just like takes this fucking huge drag off a cigarette and he's just, yup, I was in a movie once. I mean, drinking a fucking beer.
So we have this guy orating, doing a great job. I think they even gave him additional direction on how to like drop and change his voice a little bit.
He's just doing a stage whisper.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have Nancy falling asleep and she hears her name and looks over to the side of the entrance of the classroom. And then we see bloodied Tina in a clear body bag, which I believe the actress was actually fully zipped up into for filming.
Yeah, Amanda Wyss had like severe like claustrophobia doing this shit too.
I would too. That's completely understandable. They put her through some shit, honestly. Like everything that follows afterward with her character popping back up in bits like that.
The bugs coming out of her mouth and the giant eels. Like slugs and eels that are.
Oh yeah, she's a trooper. Let's just say that.
I gotta tell you though, this is the most elaborate. Like if somebody ever wanted to sell tampons, this is the way to do it.
Tina had the worst Shark Week of her life in this scene. Nancy gets up to walk down the hallway and all you see is this trail of blood leading all the way down, and you see Tina's dead arm just flop onto the floor and she gets dragged by an invisible force by her feet out of sight.
Yeah, she's just in this giant bag. Nancy. Like Nancy probably like, what the fuck is this shit?
Poor girl. It's a heavy flow day.
No, it's pretty bad. I'm talking, it goes from the classroom door all the way to the boiler room.
Oh, all the way down the stairs and everything. Oh, girl. I feel bad for that school's janitor.
You mean the one that was just like, you need a hall pass?
Oh my God, I love that scene. So Nancy goes and follows the trail of blood around the corner. And of course I think she's running at this point, turns a corner and slams into somebody, knocks him to the ground. And the girl was like, where's your hall pass? And Nancy looks at her and goes, screw your pass. Love that delivery.
It's a good line.
The Freddie voiceover work directly after that, where that person she knocked over is wearing the sweater.
Hey, Nancy, no running in the hallway.
Beautiful. She goes down a series of steps. There's a no students allowed sign in the hallway there, I believe.
This is creepypasta territory, like later on. Like every creepypasta I ever remembered reading had some kind of like endless hallway or an endless fucking stairwell. Could probably be traced back to this.
And then we find ourselves in the boiler room, which may or may not actually exist in the school, but definitely part of this dream that she's having. And you see, you got the steam noises everywhere. You got these weird echoes that are super unsettling. I think you hear more whispering throughout these scenes as well.
Yeah, there's definitely some more Nancy, like shit happening.
I think that's Nancy's first face-to-face confrontation with Freddy. He chases her down into a dead end, and she's screaming and thrashing and wailing. Freddy does this ridiculous tongue flick. That's teasing.
That's a very signature Freddy Krueger thing.
It sure is, and I love it because it's vulgar and it's funny. It suits him very well.
Did you notice okay? So like Nancy wakes herself up by burning her arm on one of the pipes, right? Mm-hmm. Did you notice the fucking sound that Krueger made when he went to swing the blades at her?
No,
dude, he had a very like fucking sound. Like I swear to God, he just like fucking swing at her. And she just wakes up flipping the hell out in the class, and Lynn Shay, the teacher, is just like, just go straight home. And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going straight home. And she's, you'll need a hall pass. And I'm like, don't bring the hall pass up. You're a really nice person. She's particular about telling people to go fuck themselves with hall passes. But we actually wind up making our way to one of the most iconic scenes in this film, is the bathtub scene.
And personally for me, this is the scariest. I have my own phobias when it comes to water. So this one gives me a terrible sense of anxiety to watch, but it is extremely well done. And I think it's also the only use of nudity in the movie, which is slightly unusual compared to some other slashers around that time. We do tend to see sex, boobs, a lot of boob, some butt, But this is very tastefully done.
I don't think it was intentional, though.
Really?
Yeah, no, I don't think it was intentional at all, because they were really just filming a stunt double.
I guess that's fair. I believe you know a little bit about the setup that they used to film that, right?
Yeah, so what happened with this sequence is they actually built a tank on set where there is a bathtub built on top of, like, there's a bathtub set built over, like, a water tank, and the person that is actually doing the arm for Freddy, like they have their arm in a full sleeve and the claws and everything.
Which was not Robert Englund.
No, it was the water stunt guy. Mm-hmm. So the person doing that actually had Heather Langenkamp, who was Nancy, kind of straddling on like a device built on this dude's like lap or shoulders or some shit where she could be like up. And he was having to like reach up and, all this other stuff. But he had to hold his breath the whole time because he wasn't wearing like an air tank or anything. So he just had to kind of hold his breath, go under, and hope for the best.
Whew. That's too much for me.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Basically what happens is Nancy's mom is like, just be careful in there. You don't fall asleep, you'll drown, all this other shit.
I have warm milk for you. Yuck.
Bro, okay,
disgusting.
Look. Yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. Okay, and I'm really asking this question. Did you ever get warm milk? Like when you were younger, did your parents ever like try the warm milk thing on you?
Not for me, no. And the idea of warm milk grosses me. Like physically makes me nauseous.
I actually have a fucking funny story to tell about that. So a friend of mine in high school, he talked about eating some like Little Debbie's one time. We were hanging out at his house, and without missing a beat, his fucking mom just, how people eavesdrop on conversations and they just kind of roll in and interject?
Oh, yeah.
She just comes in, I love Little Debbie's with warm milk. And I think his mom is the only person I've ever heard exclaiming, not proclaiming, but exclaiming, because I'm talking to old girl yell, like, I love Little Debbie with warm milk. And I'm like, who the fuck drinks warm milk?
I wonder if like the, warm milk or help put you to sleep thing comes from the whole like dairy issue with us pushing dairy on the population in the United States. They're just like, oh yeah, you can't sleep before bed, consume all this lactose. And not just the lactose. You gotta make it almost boiling. And then you sip on it until you're asleep. It helps.
Yeah, and then you'll wake up and shit your ass.
Exactly.
Anyway, Nancy falls asleep in the bathtub, right? Then we get the entire tank sequence where she's underwater. And I find the dumbest shit humorous, by the way. So, like, when she's knocking on the door, she's like, Nancy, like, can't hear her or whatever. She's obviously drowning and yelling for a mom when she can pop her head up above water. You remember Team America, whenever they just had Ben Affleck as a hand?
Yes.
whenever she fucking yells for Nancy and her hands pop up out of the water and she's reaching for the side of the tub, it looks like she's trying to like mime talk with her hand at her mom. Like
It's her sign language.
exactly like Nancy. It's like a Peanuts teacher like fucking talking out at her or whatever. I don't know why I found that hilarious, but I guess it's just the editing and the sequence where it happens. But anyway, she pops up out of the water finally. And by the way, I've never actually seen somebody successfully unlock a door with a coat hanger.
Oh, she got in there real quick too, like she's had practice with a coat.
I was gonna say her mom probably did. She probably did that to Kruger's house.
The abandoned boiler room.
Yeah, the
broke
abandoned
into it
boiler
with
room.
a coat hanger.
Probably not the only thing she's used a coat hanger for. Let's be honest.
Oh no. So she breaks in and her mom immediately is, oh my God, what happened to you? Covers her in a robe. I just want to know also, by the way, she must have gotten every single towel that she and her ex-husband had in the divorce because there's like 6 of them hanging right by the door. Another one by the toilet. And she wraps her in one after giving her her bathrobe.
I would like to point out that none of the towels match the room.
They're like yellow.
The room has floral, but like deep green and pink floral.
She must not gotten the money in the divorce or else she could have bought
No,
some damn
he was probably just like, you could keep the towels, bitch.
He let her have the house too. Like, damn.
Right. He's like, I'll move out. You can keep the towels. It's the least I can fucking do.
Yeah, I think she hands Nancy her warm milk, pats her ass, and sends her to bed after that. Tries to anyway.
What a mom thing to do.
Right.
So there's a nice little callback back and forth between Sam Raimi of the Evil Dead franchise and Wes Craven. In The Evil Dead, which came out in 1981, when Ash and Scott are in the basement kind of rummaging around looking for stuff down there, there's a poster on the wall of The Hills Have Eyes, which was a film by Wes Craven from 1977. So in this movie, Nancy is watching The Evil Dead on this small-ass TV that's in a chair next to her bed. But the way they kind of edit the audio on here is hilarious because that's another movie that I know like the back of my hand. So I know which sequence certain scenes should be in. She's watching the end of the movie. However, by the time she actually turns the TV off, you just hear chainsaw sounds that were happening like midway through the movie. And then you hear Cheryl screaming an iconic line from that movie where she holds her hands over her ears and she's yelling, shut it off. But when she yells, shut it off, there's like a peak of her voice breaking. And then that's when she turns the TV off. And I'm like, that's a fucking hilarious edit.
Great timing. Great callback to those movies. Love those films, by the way.
Yeah, same.
Fantastic. I believe Glenn climbs his way up their rose trellis at that point and finds himself in Nancy's room with her. He mentions that he heard that she had a really bad time in English class today and notices the contusion, the burn on her arm from her dream. Asks her what happened, and she goes, I burned myself in English class. And you can see for a moment the look of confusion on Johnny Depp's face with absolutely no follow-up questions to that. She then picks up a mirror next to her, looks at her face, and, you know, they're starting to do a little bit different with the makeup. They're giving her bags under her eyes, giving that purpley, obviously sleep-deprived look. Her skin looks a little more pallid. And I swear to God, I roll my eyes every time I watch this scene, but she just looks at her face and goes, God, I look 20. Bitch, please. Well, first of all, I'm offended.
Well, the humor in that is the best part. So the humor is that she is playing a 16-year-old. She's 20 by the filming. So she's actually a 20-year-old saying, God, I look 20 years old.
Do you remember what it was to be 16 and think 20 was old?
Yes.
How naive we were.
Yes. So we get to a moment where Glenn, like you said, he's come into the room and she's like, hey, I have a proposition for you.
Not the one that he hopes it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so she's basically asking him to watch her while she goes and looks for somebody in her dream. And she makes her way in the dream to the police station where Rod is being held, which she has talked to him.
Yeah, she did visit him just to reaffirm, like, what happened. Did you catch a look at the guy? He was describing the knives for fingers earlier on.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and delve into that scene a little bit. So the thing that I mentioned earlier about Nick Corey, which is actually not even his real name. It's actually Jesus Garcia is actually his real name. And I remember he was talking about how his agent was wanting him to have like an Italian name, you know, because he was like, oh, you know, let's put an Italian name and an Italian actor, you know, because it was like supposedly it was taboo at the time to do some shit like that.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if it was like frowned upon or what it was, but they wanted to make it more palatable for sure.
Right. That sequence where he's talking with Nancy about what happened at the house and confirmed by him. I'm not saying like what he was on. I don't even think he said what he was on, but he was talking about being on some actual hard drugs and going through some hard times and shit. And he was on drugs during that sequence.
And I will say that you can see that the way that the sweat that beads on his face and his eyes, like you do get a little bit of a feeling that at least with the knowledge of what he was going through, you're like, oh yeah, I can kind of see that he was going through the shit in this scene for sure. Dude was having a hard time.
Yeah, and I mean, dude was sweating his ass off.
Yes. And you see Nancy, like they go back and forth between Rod's face and Nancy's face, and Nancy's just no sweat, perfectly fine, looking a little tired, but other than that, we're all good. And then they pan back to him, and he's just dripping. He is moist. I hate that I just said that, but it was the first word that came to mind. My man's was moist.
He was pretty dried off by the time Nancy found him in the dream sequence, though, because that dude is he's sleeping pretty hard right now.
He needed it.
I want to point out that I think Freddy Krueger does the better job of walking through jail bars over the T-1000. I just want to throw that out there.
The way he opens the door to the jail cell area, but then phases through the jail cell bars.
I know, dude. I was fucking looking at that shit like you literally had to push the door open but walked through the jail bars. And both of those doors are locked. Are we just showing off at this point?
And he's aware that Nancy's watching him through like the little window in the jail cell at this point. Yeah, and he's fucking with her just as much as he wants to mess with Rod.
Yeah, he's putting on a magic show at this point. Okay, he's like, hey, look what I can do, bitch.
And he like reaches over and he's like reaching for the blanket. You see him grab the edge of the blanket, and then Nancy, I think, turns away to call for Glenn or something like that, and there's no response. And she snaps back, and Freddy's gone. He's not in that room anymore. And all I can think of is my man's was just tucking Rod in, you know? Because in that next scene, you see the blanket all pulled up to his chin, like he's nice and cozy now, and he was completely uncovered before.
Yeah, he kind of fucking leaves him tucked in. He's just like, next time, bitch. So Nancy looks over and she's seeing Tina again. Slugs at her feet, bug coming out of like, dude, ooh. The way the bug comes out of her mouth, it's really funny. Like that's another scene I kind of laugh at for real, because of the delivery. Nancy, it's like the bug just comes out, just the way she.
I think it was like a millipede or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was something bad. Yeah. So she gets chased back to her house or whatever. This is where we get the pancake stairs.
The Bisquick mix. And let me just say, one of my least favorite feelings of all time, especially in dreams, but I do this in real life too, is someone chasing me upstairs. If someone's even walking upstairs behind me, it makes me want to go faster because I feel like I'm being chased.
Right.
So to get that dream sequence of her feet going right through the stair and getting stuck, and you see it just stretches as she tries to lift her feet out of there. And fun fact, that was absolutely really thickened Bisquick mix that they used for that effect.
Yeah, if you just make it and just let it sit there, it's so bad.
Which is exactly the effect that they were going for. So it works out very well. And you get Freddy creeping up behind her. She makes it all the way into the bedroom, sees Glenn still sleeping in the corner of her room.
Fucker.
That asshole.
That's where Freddy busts through the mirror, right?
Yeah, which I like that effect too. He did a good job, and it was a practical effect. So it was well done. He jumps right through, tackles her off of the bed. And I just want to say, every time Freddy ends up in a rumble on the floor with someone, the way that Freddy forces his whole body down on someone, like it's not just trying to pin their wrists and ankles or anything like that. His whole body is up on that person. It's just it's like suffocating. You know what I mean? He's using his whole form. And it's all about building the fear. He's not trying to like kill them in that moment. He's trying to freak the shit out of them. She ends up back on the bed, holding up one of her pillows as a last bastion of defense, a feather pillow between her and Freddy Krueger. And I love the bit of humor that they throw in with this, too, where Freddy purposely just cuts the pillow open and grabs it and shakes the feathers. And then she wakes up, and one of the first things she does is turn towards Glenn and call him a little shit and smacks him.
Hey, yeah, she's just like, I asked you to do one thing. He's like, what? And she's like, what did you do? You shit, slaps him. And she's like, you fell asleep. And he's just fucking sitting there. Yeah, yeah, just,
literally.
Yeah. Glenn would be that cat, huh?
He seems like the just clueless cinnamon roll most of the time. He does a very good job of giving you that idea. He entertains all of Nancy's bullshit despite not experiencing any of it himself.
This is why I don't buy him being the jock character, because the jock would have fucking left his girl high and dry.
Honestly, the only time I got the impression watching that as a kid that he was supposed to be a jock was later on in the film where he's wearing that cutoff. That, I don't know if it's a jersey or a shirt.
It's a jersey, yeah.
Yeah, and in that moment I was like, oh, I can associate that. That made sense to me. But up until that point, probably wouldn't have guessed. And Nancy's mom, like, shouts or is on her way up to the room. She, like, pushes Glenn out the window, basically, like, get the fuck out of here.
Dude, and yeah, she definitely does. But is that the one where when her mom, like, rolls, because her mom rolls into this room several times. Is that the one where she kind of does that head tilt thing? And she's got massive, like, 80s cock rock bed head going on.
Marge wins bed head of the year, hands down.
Yeah, dude.
Absolutely.
Like, she just rolls up in there and she's like, oh, it's just a bad dream. I'm going right back to bed. She's like, okay. He's probably to go drown herself in vodka again.
She's such a good drunk mother.
She plays a very good drunk, I'll tell you that much. One thing I really enjoy about this sequence is when Nancy looks back out the window to call for Glenn, she notices a single feather dropping down, which indicates that this is still dream happening. And
also the possibility of being able to pull things out of the dream.
Right. Because I do want to say that this movie, like, for those of you that obviously have seen this, again, spoilers, the whole movie is a dream within a dream. So it's really odd if you don't get that, to be like, well, what the fuck is happening? You know, like, why are certain events still allowed as far as, like, the playing field of what the Nightmare franchise is, which it wasn't a Nightmare franchise by then, but they were still kind of writing the book of rules in terms of what they could or could not do with Freddy in the dream world. But anyway, they go to the police station. And after a lot of convincing between Nancy and her dad, they finally let them in to go see Rod. And Rod is getting attacked by his dick. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not his dick, but it looks like it's his dick.
The way it rolls up, and I believe they shot this in reverse
they did,
for the movie. The way it pulls up and it just kind of twists itself and wraps itself around Rod's neck and proceeds to drag and then strangle him from the ceiling bars, which I can't remember last time I saw a jail cell with bars on the ceiling, but
well, it was going out the window, like the little window she was peeking into with the bars. That's where it was going outside.
That's right. And then, you know, in spite of being in a building full of officers, this man was hung to death. And of course, we got everybody freaking out, pulling Rod down. He's like grayish looking
already
at that point. Yeah. I can't remember whether or not you hear like a little neck crack sound. Okay, yeah. So it's just instantly neck broken. He's down. They pull him on the ground, and there's this just brief comical moment for me where his head just kind of rolls to the side, and I can see his like tongue in his mouth, and I just get the idea that's going bleh. You know what I mean? That's his little death sequence. And we roll right into the funeral for him.
He puts the fun in funeral, which let's talk about the weirdness of this funeral. Okay. So this man, to very many of to all the townsfolk, because the only person that knows this didn't happen is Nancy at this point, because I don't even think Glenn is even on the page of what any of these fuckers are going through.
Dude is having his own adventure half the time.
Right. So Nancy is at this funeral. Bruh, they fucking bury him next to Tina.
Which we didn't see a funeral for Tina, by the way.
No, we did not.
We don't mourn Tina. We're mourning the guy that we assume to be Tina's murderer, and we're going to bury them next to each other for all of eternity.
We're going to bury them next to each other, and as the preacher is reading the fucking, like, sermon and the eulogy and everything, he kind of, like, it's like a backhanded, like, reading.
Yeah, no, I remember him saying, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and judge not lest ye be judged, as they lower him down.
No shit, and it's fucked up, because, like, as he says the, like, live by the sword, die by the sword, his dad is in the funeral seating, and he just looks over at the lieutenant like, fuck you.
Which I don't think we had any setup for his parents at all. We wouldn't really have any way of knowing that that's his dad, but almost every other face in that crowd is recognizable at that
It's
point.
the only time you see his parents. So after a nice establishing shot that this is once again California from them coming out of the funeral home.
Whole line of palm trees in the back.
Oh, yeah. This is again where we kind of get the idea that these are two different parents with two different parenting styles, because her dad is like, you should probably go get some rest. And then the mom's like, I got a better idea. I'm going to get her some help. And you get the feeling that Nancy knows that it's just some more drunk idea bullshit, because she looks over at her and then she looks up at her dad and she stares him down the whole time they drive away. And I can just read the internal monologue happening of her just being like, Dad, get me the fuck out of this car.
This is also the first time that Nancy vocalizes to her parents anything about Fred Krueger.
She does, because she starts mentioning what he looks like and all this other shit, because like Marge and Donald start looking at each other like,
The knowing looks.
fuck, the jig is up.
And from that point on in the movie, they do not stop gaslighting her until the end of the fucking film.
You know who else they gaslit? Fred Krueger.
Twice over.
Fucking literally.
This poor bitch right here.
I know. So Marge takes Nancy to the Katya Institute, which is kind of a funny name. Gotcha. It sounds like gotcha, but it's Katya. Takes her to the Katya Institute for the study of sleep disorders. The establishing shot on this building cracks me the fuck up, okay? Because this is 1984, and it looks like actual employees walking across like the sidewalk. It almost reads as if this entire shot was the owner of this building being like, you can't shoot here.
This is a legitimate medical facility.
This is a legitimate business. You can't shoot here. And then Wes was like, okay. And then like fucking has a cigarette and he's looks at the director of photography. Fuck that. Take the camera and hide in the bushes and we'll do an establishing zoom shot from here. They'll never know. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like,
He heard that and was like, I bet.
for real. So they do a really like, because I say this because the shot is so far that they're zooming way in.
Weirdly far away.
Right, like it's way in on the side. So they do that, and Nancy kind of makes an allusion to a plot device that doesn't come into play until the third film. Because she mentioned something, she's like, why do I got to do all these tests? Why can't you just give me a pill that makes me not dream?
Which I think, in my opinion, that was just a spur moment thing, because they had no idea that this movie was going to become the franchise that it did.
Sure.
Until after it was released and they got audience's reaction to it, their own children's reaction to seeing the film.
Right. They really honestly didn't know there was a franchise here until after the second one came out too.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, she's like, can't you just give me a pill to keep me from dreaming? And it's like, Hypnosil. We'll get there eventually in part 3. So they put her in like all of this shit, and they even go so far as to like put these wires on like her
chin?
Yeah, like, okay.
What are they measuring in there?
I have no idea.
Whether or not she grits her teeth, grinds them in her sleep.
Or she has like lip quivers in the night or something. I don't know. But anyway, like she starts dreaming. We don't actually see this dream. So this is kind of like we, for one of the first times, get a complete outside perspective of what they're looking like. She starts like shaking around, and they eventually like go in there and wake her, because like her levels and number readings are like completely off the charts. Like, no pun intended, like they're really off the charts and shit.
Like 30, 50, whatever, and it's supposed to stay around like, what did they say? Like
10.
Yeah, something like that.
They're like, I think it was something like any higher than like 15, and then like she's dreaming or some shit. But she pulls Freddy Krueger's hat out from under the blankets or whatever, and they're just like, where did you get that? And she's like, I grabbed it off his head. And she's gotten like two claw marks on her arm. Like she's been cut and shit. So this is kind of where we find out, oh, fuck, there's a plot device being developed here.
I also want to say how ridiculous it is that she went through a whole like medical process. They changed her outfit. She's in a hospital bed, basically hooked up to all this stuff. Do they think that she smuggled that hat out of her cooch? Like, I don't know where else they think she could have pulled that from.
I don't know. It's funny though, because the next morning into the kitchen, and where her mom is drinking, yet again,
2 shots of vodka.
Talking to Donald on the phone. She's like, no, I'm not crazy. I'm holding the damn thing right here. And it's one of those one-sided conversations,
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not crazy. I'm holding the damn thing right here. No, Donald, I have no idea how she shoved this whole thing up her ass to get into the sleep disorder clinic. Well, no, I can't tell for sure. It's brown from the start. No, I don't know. Oh, she's here. I call you later. And she like hangs up, throws the hat in a drawer, shoves it shut, and shoves the vodka bottle between herself and the refrigerator and hides it behind her. It's like, bro.
She was hiding the vodka bottle in that scene. That's the scene where she's like standing, like, oh shit, and like standing in front of it.
Yeah.
So that her daughter doesn't see how strongly she's been driven to drink by this experience.
Her daughter knows, though. Nancy fucking knows. And that's the saddest but funniest kind of part about this scene, too. I would love to point out the vodka bottle actor's stunt double for this scene. Absolute gold star performance here. Her mom is just like, oh, stop drinking that damn coffee. I don't even know what you're trying to prove here. And she's like, you know, what I learned in the dream clinic. Grabs the hat. Like, knew her mom had hidden it. Like, grabs it. She's like, it's real, mama. Feel it. It even has his name written in it. Fred Krueger. Do you know who that is, mother? And she always calls her mother. I've noticed that she calls her mom mother and calls her dad daddy. So you can tell she was a daddy's girl, full blown.
For sure.
Kind of resents her mom. You know, she's like, if you know who this is, you better tell me because he's after me now. And then was just like telling her finally, she's like, oh, Fred Krueger can't come after you anymore. He's dead or some shit. I think before that, she slaps her, though, because she's basically telling her mom, she's like, you know, oh, you just want me to sleep and all this other shit. But, you know, how about I just grab a bottle and veg out with you and forget about everything that's bothering me by getting good and loaded.
So one small detail about the dream testing in the facility, when Nancy woke up, she had a streak of gray hair going down the side of her face. When her mother smacked her in that scene, I swear to God, I expected her to backhand the gray right out of her fucking noggin.
She slapped the shit out of her.
It was a hard slap. And all Nancy does is like backpedal and turn back towards her with this like defiant look. And I think she just like walks out after that.
She just fucking...
We also see Marge just like unabashedly smoking cigarettes and carrying around the vodka bottle around the house after that.
Dude, it's almost like full-blown unhinged at that point, too. Like, it's to the point that, like, her daughter grabs the bottle. This is where the stunt bottle comes in. She grabs the bottle and smashes it on the ground because her mom's just like, you'll feel better when you get some sleep. And she's like, screw sleep. And fucking like smashed it on the ground. Right? Barefoot, no shoes.
Oh, yeah. Again, no shoes.
How did she miss, like, that would have broken her foot.
There's some point of dialogue here that also confirms that it's been a week without her sleeping at this point. Yeah. Nancy needs to become part of the Russian sleep experiment.
Jesus Christ.
I swear to God. That's insane. At 18 hours into my day, I'm like, holy shit, I need to go down for a nap.
You are not wrong. It's 1984. This is like Cold War era. So you're definitely on the money there.
Timing's not that far off. Nancy calls Glenn on the phone, and you can see them like looking at each other through their windows because they're neighbors. I think
they live across the street.
Yeah, right across the street from each other. So they can see each other through the windows and whatnot. All Nancy asks him to do is to stay awake until midnight and then come over and wake her up. Simple enough request.
Right, yeah. But there's a couple things that happen before this, though. Before she does that, like she meets Glenn on this little bridge walk, like in a park somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's reading this book and he just looks at it and he's just like, booby traps and improv like traps or whatever. He's like, what are you reading this for? And she's like, I'm a survivor. And he's explaining something that he was reading about like dream skills. You know, how people are developing dream skills and turning their backs. Like he gives this whole thing about like, oh, well, you just turn your back on whatever you're giving your energy to and it will make the nightmare powerless. Some kind of ancient shit that he just randomly pulled out of his ass that he's just been reading about.
In another culture, yeah.
But it makes me laugh when he starts talking about the whole dream skills thing because he's coming off like Napoleon Dynamite a little bit.
You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills. Girls only want boyfriends who have great skills.
Dream skills. Girls only want boyfriends that have great skills.
Do you think Kevin McAllister borrowed that book from Nancy when she was done with it?
I'm pretty sure Kevin McAllister wrote a revised edition of that book, like somehow by the time he got around to fucking doing shit. But it would not surprise me. That's the crossover I would like to see. It would be a battle of the red sweaters at that point, like fucking Kevin McAllister in his big ass red sweater versus Freddie in his Christmas sweater.
That's a Freddie Christmas special that I would watch.
Fuck yeah.
Hands down.
But it should absolutely be no surprise at this point because between her calling Glenn and everything else that happens, she comes home to find that her mom has put bars on the house like some goddamn prison.
Her mom is also super drunk already at this point.
She's always drunk.
She's just blasted 25-8.
I know you said blasted 25-8, but I swear it sounded like you said she's blessed 25-8.
Blessed.
She's blissfully ignorant to literally anything, willfully and blissfully ignorant. So it's no surprise that by this point, she just like steps out of the kitchen and into that weird corridor hallway, like sidesteps, and her hair is like teased and fucked up, and she just pulls another cigarette out and lights it. And she's just like, come down to the basement. Like, excuse me, whiskey voice? She said, come down to the basement. I'm going to show you something.
Mama's going to show you some shit.
Basically, she gives Nancy the rundown of how the parents tracked down Fred Krueger after the court let him go because Freddy Krueger, as depicted in this film, is, quote, a filthy child murderer, which, yes, that is the script that it called for, but the original idea of it, which they wound up toning down because during this time, it would have been fucking insane to put this on screen, which they actually wound up doing in the 2010 remake, that Fred Krueger was intended to be a child molester. And they totally like toned it down to him just being a real creep that murdered kids and all this other shit. Anyway, like she tells her all of this and she's like, yeah, like we had him dead to rights in the courtroom, but somebody signed the search warrant in the wrong place and the courts had to let him go and he was free. So all of us parents tracked him down to the old boiler room that he worked at. We torched him alive. And it's like, bro.
But Mommy went in for a souvenir after.
Oh, for sure. She has the glove in the boiler of their own house, wrapped in a towel inside of this thing, hidden away. And the best line from this entire sequence is Marge looking at her daughter and she's like, it's okay. Like Freddy Krueger can't get you anymore because Mommy killed him. Now you can sleep. No, I can't sleep. Now I'm even more afraid because you torched this fucker and he's coming after me now, you bitch.
And it's at this point, I think, in the movie where I started to understand that this was a movie about revenge.
100%.
The way he comes after the kids as a way to get back at the parents. And it's only the children of the Elm Street parents.
That's it.
I thought that was fantastic. And coming into that realization, I was like, oh, this goes beyond like just some psycho killer or whatever.
Yeah, there was actually some reasoning behind him doing what he was doing. And not like, it's not like, oh, good for him. It's not like a good revenge. It's like, oh, that's a fucked up revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. The most evil kind.
Did you notice all the bullshit that was in that basement?
It's like they took random shit from different parts of their house, different department stores, different holidays, and just shoved it all over the place.
It looks like all the shit that Donald was like, I'll be back for it later.
My favorite thing to notice in the basement scene is the tapestry that's hung in like the back right corner on the other side of the boiler. And you see this later on in the movie too. It's literally like the poker dogs. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And it's so vibrant and it's actually lit up by a light right in front of it. So it's impossible not to notice this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's Front Street. It's like they purposely stuck it there and the lighting team was like, hey, put a light on that. That's pretty fucking cool.
I think after this scene, we go right into Glenn being a shithead because he has already fallen asleep.
Well, this is the phone call sequence after this. And then she tells him basically like, hey, you know, don't fall asleep. Like, I have a plan. I'm going to go in. I'm going to grab this guy. I want you to be here on the front porch. That way, you know, we can, you know, because she's like, I'll grab him out my dream. I'll wake up. You whack the fucker. And we got him.
Yeah, easy peasy, right?
And he's totally, like you've said earlier, he's totally entertaining this entire bit, right? But he doesn't have any plans to follow through because Miss Nude America is going to be on tonight.
But I mean, what's the point of watching the tube if he's listening to records on his headphones? He can't hear what she's saying.
Who cares what she's saying?
Why wouldn't we care what she's saying?
Look, it's the 80s. Titties mattered then and titties matter now, okay?
I also want to note that it pans over to the clock at this point, and you can see that it is already 11:42. This dickhead could not stay awake for like 15 more minutes.
No, because there's some funny shit that happens in the span of this 40 minutes. And I really mean like funny and like sad, really. Because if you think about the time that it is now and then the time that it is by the time the film is getting towards the climax, it's 11:42 p.m. He falls asleep, which I like the call letters on the radio station that he's listening to. It's KRGR, obviously, or the TV station is KRGR.
KRGR leaving the air.
Yep. So we don't see anything that happens to Glenn within the dream except for what happens like literally in the reality of the house. And Krueger's arms come up from the middle of the bed and they pull Glenn in and then like just fountain of fucking blood. This dude is such a chump though. My God, like his dad is such a chump before all this happens. He's standing outside drinking a beer and looking at Nancy, who has just gotten changed in her room.
Oh, yeah.
And she notices this, and she fucking closes the blinds like, fucking perv.
What a weirdo.
And then the mom comes outside, and because he's heard her, he just doesn't like make any bones about it, and he just like flips the script where he's just like, and my son pointed out that this man looks like Peter Griffin and sounds like Peter Griffin, dresses exactly like Peter Griffin, so I'm going to like do this entire line as Peter Griffin. You know something? I don't like that kid.
That slut was just changing in her bedroom.
Right.
For God's sake, how dare she?
Right. He's like, I don't want that kid hanging around our kid anymore, Lois. Like straight up. But he goes back in and she's trying to call him at this point, and his mom picks the phone up and she's like, what's this regarding? And the dad just grabs the phone. He's just like, oh, he'll have to call you in the morning. Fucking hangs up. She's got to be firm with these kids.
And then he goes in and leaves the phone unhinged so that she can't even call back.
Yeah, back in the day, young listeners, and I know we don't have like a ton of like terribly young listeners, but if you just did not have a landline growing up, the easiest way to go fuck off somewhere was to just leave your phone off the hook. You didn't have to answer it. Nobody could get through to you. But that was a dick move. So Glenn winds up biting the proverbial dust.
Such a great scene.
Dude, and the scene in question is the biggest iconic murder in this entire franchise, in my opinion. They built a special set for this that was a rotating set. It was also used in the sequence with Rod and Tina. But whenever they built it for this one, they didn't take into account a lot of other shit, right? So they nailed everything to the walls and the ceilings and stuff, and they had to turn the room upside down to dump all this blood out. Well, the balance got thrown off in this thing because it's just this giant square box that's on a giant rotator that people are having to manually rotate. So there's so many gallons of fake blood and water sloshing around and moving it that it's actually coming out of the room and onto the electrical equipment on the floor. So it's electrified the entirety of the floor of the soundstage they're on.
And where the blood's coming from.
Yep. So the entire set is electrified and the floor is electrified. So the crew members are getting fucking electrocuted and shocked, and the actors are getting fucking scared shitless and running for their lives. So there's a shot when Glenn's mom walks into the room and she can look at the blood, and the blood is on the ceiling and it looks like it's flowing at a diagonal like angle. And that's kind of where that effect had come from, because they were leaving all these shots in the room of it just like tilting all weird and fucky.
And you know what? I never thought about it as a possible like mishap that they like kept in or whatever. It also lends to that weirdness about dreams where things don't stay static or stationary or how you expect them to.
Right.
So you see all the blood sloshing to one side. You see the light or the lamp just going off, and mom screaming bloody murder. No pun intended.
So the next shot is police presence, ambulance, Peter Griffin walking up. Oh my God. And walks away.
Daddy's back.
Yeah, Daddy Peter. They walk up and they put this blood bucket underneath where the blood's coming from the ceiling, because Glenn also had a very bad flow day. And they're catching all this. Lieutenant Thompson walks in and, where's the coroner? Oh, he's been in the John puking ever since he saw it. It's like, fuck, dude.
Right before that, you have this scene of the emergency team, the ambulance people pulling a stretcher up to the front of the house.
What for?
Right, exactly. No, the cop literally is like, you don't need a stretcher, you need a bucket. Like, it's terrible.
Oh, yeah, he did say, like, bring a bucket and a mop, right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Nancy calls over to the house. So someone definitely hung up that phone at some point, because she calls over, gets her dad on the phone.
Well, I mean, they had to call the 911, you know? So I'm saying, it's like they definitely were like, well, I guess we got to fucking put the phone back on the hook.
Yeah, and Nancy starts explaining this plan to her father. Like, please, 20 minutes, come over to the house. I'm going to have the guy who did this. It was Fred Krueger, Dad. There's some delivery where they're talking about Glenn during that conversation, and her dad just goes, yeah, apparently he's dead.
So like, nonchalant. Before this happened, she ripped the phone cord out of the wall and broke it.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So it's the scene where Freddie does the "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy" line with the tongue coming out of it. Yeah. So by then, she's also made her way downstairs to Marge, trying to get out the house, where her mom also has installed locks on the inside that you need a key to unlock from the inside as well.
And Mama Marge is blasted on the couch.
Yeah, she's just like, locked. Drunk bitch, goddamn.
Also a really cool effect that they used there on the phone itself. They kind of modeled and superimposed Freddie's mouth onto the receiver.
Yeah.
Loved that. So you actually get a visual of the tongue coming out and licking Nancy's lips, and she just throws it and stomps it on the ground in disgust.
The face that she makes, though, is hilarious. She kind of goes cross-eyed looking down.
So Nancy has 20 minutes before her father shows up at the house.
Right. So we are led to believe 12:10 is when she presumably hangs the phone up, right? Kevin McAllister's the piss out of this house. And I'm talking like she does like this gunpowder light bulb thing. She does a tripwire. She sets up this sledgehammer, which she borrowed from our boy Triple H to use right there. She borrows that and puts it up above her bedroom door and a bunch of other stuff, right?
Which, where the hell does she get the money for all this stuff?
I want to know what time got used. There's no fucking way she set this up in 10 minutes because it was 10 minutes because she falls asleep at 12:20 with a 10-minute timer.
10 minutes to get all that crap together, to get it all set up. It takes me 10 minutes to put my fucking shoes on. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm old and I move slow. So it would have taken me half the fucking day to set up for that shit.
Yeah, because you don't ever see her take. Like, the only explanation is that maybe she just had all this stuff laying around the house.
I mean, I would assume so. They were all fairly conventional items, I would say, things that you would typically find in a household. We get one more scene after that of her tucking her own mother into bed, which I like that recurring theme as well of Nancy being more of a parent to her mom than her mom was to her.
Yeah, because, you know, the mom is definitely a broken shell of the person she used to be.
And we do see our favorite character, Vodka Bottle, one more time in that scene. Let me also say that Marge's brand loyalty is fucking unreal.
I wonder how much money she actually drops on that. What job does she have? I've never actually looked into what she does for a living.
In that first scene when Nancy's about to go off to school, you can see her mom dressed up in like a
business
two-piece. Yeah, absolutely. So you know she's got some cushy job or other, but she never goes to that job.
Business.
Also, her liver must literally be shrunk to the size of a baked bean at this point.
Built like a baked bean.
Built like a baked bean.
Is it just me, or does Nancy have the sleeping, resting bitch face thing down pat?
Yeah, she does look like she's got fucking stink face as she's passing out. Like, she's pissed at this point.
Oh, yeah. Well, she also hasn't slept for, what was like 6 days at this point. She should have been dead by now. By science standards, she should be dead or, like, has lost her mind.
Which, I mean, she probably is massively sleep deprived, and there's no way of knowing if some of the things that she sees or experiences are dream sequences or her brain literally messing with her.
Yeah, her brain's definitely quitting on her at this fucking point. I'm gonna like cut through like a bunch of the bullshit for this back end of this this movie. So she definitely does she has a dream sequence where she's hunting Freddy down, right? She goes to the boiler room. She's hearing the voices of everybody he's killed so far on screen. There's even a shot where she finds some of the mementos, like she finds the crucifix, and then she's finding like Glenn's headphones. Basically, like it harkens back to what a serial killer does and keeps it like mementos from his victims and shit.
Yeah, absolutely. There is an interesting continuity break right after that. I know we talked about this where, you know, earlier in the movie, she steals his hat and pulls it out of Dream.
Her ass.
So the first sequence we see of Freddy's face again during that part of the movie, he is wearing the hat in one frame.
It's a jump scare. It's the same spot that he jump scares in the beginning of the movie where where Tina was, but Nancy is now there, and he pops in from the side of the shot, and he's got the hat, but then he's chasing her down the stairwell. He's more bald than I am at that point.
We also get another beautiful view of the Poker Dogs tapestry.
Oh yeah, but dude, look, by the time he's chased her down this fucking stairwell, Nancy takes the most like Mick Foley off the top of the Hell in a Cell cage dive down into the rose bushes like by the house, which, ouch.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, how did that not wake her up? Then again, she's so goddamn sleep deprived, like nothing's waking her up at this point.
Not to mention all the booby traps right after that, which that sledgehammer, oof, Freddy getting hammered as bad as Marge.
No shit, dude. Like, hey, leave a comment down in the comment section below. Did Marge or Freddy get hammered worse at that point in the movie? Just do it. So she catches him, wakes up. He's not there. Again, this is when, you know, he shows up. Bro, he gets ball tapped hard right there.
Real bad. And I want to point out, I love these following scenes from that point as well, because there is a certain clumsiness that they gave Krueger for after he is pulled out of Nancy's dream. And I really like that they did this. You see him falling down the stairs, you know, getting hit by all these booby traps and whatnot, the hammer. It just lends a little bit more to when you were in a dream sequence with Freddy's at the top of his game. He is in complete control there. You know what I mean? And it gives him a sense of weakness after he's pulled out where you're like, okay, there might be a way to actually beat this guy.
And he is absolutely the bumbling fucking idiot. So by the time he gets ball tapped, my man falls over the banister and clearly lands on a mattress where the stairwell is.
You get that one frame of the mattress.
But I love the noises that he makes when he falls. He's like, like hits the damn stairs. And another thing that cracks me about this entire scene is Nancy is like smashing all these windows in her house, yelling across the street for her dad and the other officers to come help her. And this one cop's just like looking at it happening. And I think by the time she gets to the third window, Freddy has already tripped that wire thing that blows up the lamp, which that was a really cool effect and a funny noise that he made again. So you just hear an explosion and he just hears, and he falls over. And she finally calls, I think she calls that one dipshit like a name, like, help me.
Asshole.
Like, yeah, she's like, get over here and help me, you fucking asshole. And then he just very nonchalantly, like, there's windows being broken, a teenager literally screaming for help, and then there's smoke billowing out of the house. And he just, maybe I better go tell the lieutenant.
I guess I should go get help.
Just the way he, you know. So they finally like go over there to help her. They're like, oh, it looks like a war zone in there. No shit. But, you know, from their vantage point, it probably looks like she's cooking meth in the basement.
Oh, yeah. Like, because just before then, she's downstairs in the basement with Freddy. And she sees this jug of fucking moonshine. I don't know what the hell it is.
Dude,
gasoline.
That's got to be Marge's hidden stash for when vodka bottle is out of business for a bit.
It's the good old homebrew, you know what I mean?
I'm telling you, she probably makes it in the toilet. Like, you know, like for real.
Prison moonshine.
That's it. Yeah, I'm telling you. What is it with every glass in this house being weak as shit? Like the coffee pot gets shattered over his head real easily. The vodka bottle breaks with no problem. She goes downstairs. He follows her. Freddy's following her. And he's like limping at that point. He's like, I'm gonna kill you slow. And she grabs that bottle and throws on him. And he's like, oh, what? No. She lights a whole box of matches and sets that bastard on fire again.
Which mad props to Robert Englund's stuntman in that scene with him getting lit on fire, running through the whole basement, going up the stairs, falling down the stairs, and then going back up again. And this was all done as one single shot. And let me tell you, that man is entirely lit up head to toe in flames.
You know, it's the best part about that, too, is like you can tell it's a stunt guy because, look, man, Freddy done ate one too many souls for that sequence. He's thick.
So Daddy Dearest and the cops come in. Finally. There is too much. There is a large gap of time between this dumbass police officer being like, I guess I'll get help, and them actually showing up. They make it over there. The police officers go to the basement to like put out the fire, whatever else is going on, her meth lab that's burning down there. And Daddy is following Nancy around. You see these burning footsteps leading all the way upstairs to Mommy Dearest's room.
How did she make it from the couch to the bedroom?
Fucking magic.
You know what? It's like she probably had her own Bisquick stair moment without the actual Bisquick stairs, because she's like, how the fuck am I getting up these stairs? Jesus Christ.
How many times do you think she stumbled, lost her footing, and had to start over again?
Leave a comment below in the comments section. Who fell down the stairs more, Freddy Krueger or Marge Thompson?
And we get Nancy and Dad up to Nancy's mom's room. They open the door, and there is a still burning Freddy on top of her mother in bed, strangling her or something along those lines, wrestling with her.
Just a tickle fight.
Just a tickle monster. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. He couldn't get in a proper pillow fight earlier, so he's trying to...
It's a tickle me Helmo.
Tickle me Helmo. Nancy picks up a chair and literally slams it across that stunt double's back, and it just like explodes. Gets Freddy off her mom, and then we get this crazy shot of mom all burnt and skeletal and fucked up.
She just looks like normal after a Saturday night binger. That's what she looks like. No makeup, no nothing.
And we get this really good like musical sound effect going on as she's being very dramatically lowered, like, you know, like a 6 feet under kind of thing into the bed before it disappears. And let me tell you, she is so full of vodka when she is lowered into the ground like that. Her body gonna be sprouting potatoes for years to come.
She's so drunk that even in a dead state, her arm's reaching up for fucking help. She's like,
Death throes.
Yeah. And at this point, like, Lieutenant Thompson, Nancy's dad, sees this with her, right? And he's just got this look like, I don't have to deal with that bitch anymore. God damn. Like, bro.
Mom was the real villain of the movie the whole time.
No shit. But yeah, he pretty much is like, hugs her, and she tells him, she's like, go ahead and go, I got this, or something like that.
I'll be downstairs in a minute.
And he leaves, and his police partner is just like,
what?
He's like,
huh?
Yeah, huh? But he's like, he's in shock, and he just leaves or whatever. But Nancy knows it's not over yet. Another cool shot is like Freddy coming up out of that bed with the sheets. It looks like rubber sheets fucking sticking to it. I'm like, ooh, Nancy's mom was a freak.
You get a little bit of like the bloody spots and stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's a really good shot.
He tears it open, but I like how he doesn't tear the thing open until she acknowledges that he's there. She acknowledges his existence being there, and he tears the rest of it open and stands up there. Like he's about to get her. And then she remembers exactly what Glenn was telling her, and she just looks at him, and she's just like, you know what? I know this is just all one giant dream. I want my mother and my friends back. And he's, you what?
You son of a bitch. Also, Freddy looks really appropriately fucked up right there. Like, he's missing chunks out of his ear. He's bloodier than normal. Good job.
This absolutely gives away the fact that this is a dream within a dream, because he would have died had that been reality.
For sure.
So he's just like, what? She's like, I take back every bit of energy I gave you.
You're nothing to me.
You're shit. Which is funny because the chapter in the DVD is titled You're Shit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. She does that and turns her back on him, and he has this really dramatic, like, my boy turns into TV static. I'm just going to put it that way. He turns into TV static and I guess like falls his ass away. And when she walks out of the bedroom, she suddenly walks out of the front door of the house, and it's all bright, sunny. There's no more bars on the window. The door has a fresh coat of blue painting. The mom is alive, and she's walking out all like
healthy
bright-eyed
and happy looking.
Bro, like the line that she fucking lets out, she's like, you know, baby, I'm going to stop drinking. They say you've bottomed out when you can't remember the night before.
Oh my God.
I just don't feel like it anymore.
I lose it every time. That cracks me up. I also want to point out, I think I forgot to say this earlier, but the symbolism of whether, quote, whether or not you're in the dream of, you notice a lot of the characters, they wear white when they're dreaming.
Right.
And we see this with Nancy in her PJs. I believe Tina's in a white button-up at the very beginning of the movie.
Glenn's wearing a white cutoff.
Yep.
Gray shorts or gray sweater pants.
And then when Nancy and her mom pop out at the end, Nancy's mom is in a white dress.
Right. So that happens. Like she's waiting to be picked up for school. It's Glenn, Tina, and Rod in the red Cadillac. And she goes, gets in the car. The top pops up on it. And when you know it, it's a red and green top. So it's like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? And Glenn is flipping out. He's like, I'm not doing this.
The windows start going up on their own.
Then Rod starts freaking. It's not until the dudes start freaking out that the girls start freaking out.
And Nancy's mom is just pageant waving from the porch.
That is the most like pageant girl wave I've ever fucking seen.
Ha ha ha, have a good time, kid.
Oh, Jesus Christ. She's like the ticket taker at a carnival ride that she knows is fucked up and has like needs repair work done. There are about to be some fucking deaths and lawsuits in this car. So they drive off, and a clear giveaway to a lot of the other dream sequence stuff is the use of fog, because they even make mention. They're like, oh, some fog we're having, huh? And when they pan off to the final shot, it's the jump rope girls again singing the melody. the cool, like the coolest idea on paper, but the most like poorly executed shot is Nancy's mom finally becoming who she was always meant to be, and that is a giant alcoholic blow-up doll being just absolutely golf ball through a garden hose pulled through this front fucking door window by Freddy Krueger.
Right on there.
You know what the best thing to do is, if you're watching this movie and you get to that scene, just pause it and then put it on slow motion where it goes a frame at a time.
It's beautiful.
The face and the rubber, it looks like a life-size 1-to-1 ratio portion of a Celebrity Deathmatch claymation body being pulled through a window. It's so fucking bad.
I love it. I don't care. I love it so much. It's just so iconic at this point.
It's so bad. I know, but it's so fucking bad. I love it.
It's great.
I mean, that's pretty much the end of the movie. And from there, this film wound up getting so many goddamn sequels. The movie was a hit. In fact, it was the hit that created New Line Cinema into becoming the blockbuster distribution company that it was for the longest time. Hence why New Line Cinema has always been referred to as the house that Freddy built.
Very appropriate.
Yes. A Nightmare on Elm Street made $57 million at the box office in its run against a $1.1 million budget. That is hella good.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not even the highest grossing in the franchise. Like, we'll get to that as we visit these movies more in the future. But that is A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Do you have any final thoughts on this movie?
I think this movie still holds up, even with the sometimes, you know, laughable looking effects that go through it. This is a rewatch for me every year, sometimes multiple times. I think we've watched it 3 or 4 times in the past month alone.
Right.
Revisiting all the series, and it's I always notice something new every time I watch it as well, which I very much enjoy.
Yeah, same here. So I do want to point out something very interesting. I don't know if you knew this or not, and many of our listeners out there may or may not know this. Robert Englund was actually not the first guy they had in mind to play Freddy Krueger. They actually had casted and shot test makeup effects with David Warner, who, if anybody out there is a child of the 1980s, knows that David Warner played Ed Dillinger in Tron. I mean, that was not his most prolific role, but it was definitely one of many. I mean, he was in Star Trek 5 and 6. He was in A Christmas Carol from 1984. He was in The Omen, Time Bandits, and Titanic. He was in a slew of films.
Wow.
Yeah, David Warner was 100% that bitch of an actor. Like, that dude was in everything that you could possibly think of. What a fucking legend. He sadly passed away July 24th of 2022. He was 80 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, we almost had David Warner as Freddy Krueger, but I dare say that I don't think Freddy would have been as iconic as he is now unless it was Robert Englund.
Absolutely, especially like going forward. I know we're going to talk about it at some other point, but the way he ends up improvising some lines and other mannerisms and characteristics of Freddy further down the line just really solidifies him as the Freddy Krueger.
Right. For those of you out there that like the score of this movie, Charles Bernstein had done the score for it, and I believe A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original motion picture soundtrack, is still available on vinyl in certain spots. You know, if you go search online, however, you can download it on Apple Music and Spotify and listen to it. That's a classic fucking score. It's another thing that I don't think this movie would have been as good without. And if you're listening to this right now, it is Monday, October 7th, and I believe in about another week or so, we will be getting the remastered from the original negative 4K HD release, and it's going to have, for the first time ever, the deleted scenes that would have caused this film to have an X rating actually re-edited back into the full cut of the film. So you're actually going to be able to watch this movie as originally intended from front to back for the first time ever on home release instead of having to watch it on extras.
In all of its glory.
Yes, so please be sure to check that out. For future episodes of Cult Macabre, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or YouTube. You can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and leave comments on individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell for notifications, leaving a like on the video, or leaving a comment below. Any kind of engagement helps. Be sure to follow us on social media by using the Linktree link in the show notes below.
So if you'd like to join us for more of pop culture's dark side, sign the black book and join the cult.
I'm Richie.
I'm Lee.
We'll see you next time.